Welcome to One Wrong Move, where one small decision set the whole chain in motion. Today's story starts with an operator fixing a single typed letter in about 8 seconds and ends somewhere nobody saw coming. A cancer patient is lying on a table, perfectly still. Above them is a machine built to save their life, a computer-controlled radiation machine, one of the most advanced in the world. In the next room, an operator types in the treatment. She has done this thousands of times. She makes a tiny typo, one wrong letter. She notices it right away and fixes it, the way anyone would. The whole correction takes her about 8 seconds. The screen says the beam is ready. It says the dose is normal. It is not normal. The machine is about to do the one thing a treatment machine should never be able to do. By the time investigators understand why, the trail will lead back to one fast correction and one missing safety layer. The machine was called the therac 25. It was built by a company called Atomic Energy of Canada Limited, for short, AECL. It was a linear accelerator, a radiation therapy machine used to treat cancer. The idea is simple. You aim a precise beam of radiation at a tumor, enough to kill the bad cells while sparing the healthy tissue around it. Done right, it saves lives every single day. This is normal, routine medicine. The patients lying under this machine were not part of some experiment. They were ordinary people getting standard treatment, trusting that the machine over them was safe. The therac 25 could work in 2 different modes, and the difference between them matters for everything that follows. In one mode, it fired a gentle, low-power electron beam straight at the patient, good for shallow tumors near the surface. In the other mode, it made X-rays to reach tumors deep inside the body. And here is the part that sounds backwards. To make those X-rays, the machine first fired an electron beam about 100 times stronger. That powerful beam slammed into a metal target. The metal soaked up almost all of it and turned it into a safe dose of X-rays. So the strong beam was only ever safe because that metal target sat in its path. The target was the whole point. Now hold that thought, a beam 100 times too strong, safe only because a piece of metal is in the way. To understand what went wrong, you have to understand one decision the company made. The older machines that came before the therac 25 had hardware safety locks built in. Real, physical switches and circuits. If the strong beam ever turned on without the metal target in place, the hardware itself cut the power. No software involved. It was a physical backstop. Even if the computer went completely insane, the hardware would not let the machine hurt anyone. When the company built the therac 25, they made a choice. They took those hardware safety locks out. They decided the software could do that job instead. The computer would watch everything. The computer would keep the beam safe. Why pay for physical locks when code can do it for free? So now there was no physical backstop. If the software was wrong, there was nothing underneath it to catch the mistake. On paper, that can look smart. Software is cheaper than steel, and it feels modern to let the computer handle everything. But a physical lock cannot have a typo. It cannot get confused by what you pressed 8 seconds ago. It just works or it does not. And the software was not new. It was reused, built on code dating back to the early 1970s. Much of the safety code was written by a single programmer. It had been carried forward from the older machines. On those older machines, the code had hidden bugs in it. Nobody knew, because the hardware locks were quietly catching them. Take the locks away, and the bugs were still there, just with nothing left to catch them. Which brings us to a hospital in Tyler, Texas in 1986. The operator there was experienced. She ran this machine all day, every day. She typed the treatment in on a keyboard, a code for the mode, the energy, the dose. Most treatments were X-ray, so to start, she typed an X. But this one was meant to be an electron treatment, so she had typed the wrong letter. She caught it. She moved the cursor up, changed the X to an E for electron, and moved back down. A completely normal correction. The kind you make without thinking. The screen now showed the right treatment. But she had done it fast. The whole fix took about 8 seconds. And inside the machine, 8 seconds was exactly the wrong amount of time. Here is what was happening under the surface. When she first entered the treatment, the machine started moving heavy parts into place. Magnets that aim the beam. That movement takes about 8 seconds. The software was supposed to check for last-second edits, but it only really checked once at the very start. If you finished editing after that first check, while the magnets were still moving, the software never noticed the change. So the screen showed electron mode, the safe mode, but deep inside, the machine was still set up for the other one. It was about to fire the powerful beam, the one that is 100 times too strong. And because it thought it was in the gentle electron mode, it never moved the metal target into the beam's path. The strong beam, no target to soak it up, pointed straight at a person. If your stomach just dropped, stay with me, because the worst part is how the company reacted. And if this is your kind of story, take a second and hit subscribe. On the screen, the operator did not see any of that. She saw the machine pause and flash a short error message. Malfunction 54. That was it. No explanation. Just a number in a manual that barely explained what it meant. These cryptic pauses happened all the time on this machine. Operators had learned to treat them as routine. The screen also told her the patient had gotten little or no dose, so the normal response was simple. Press P for proceed and try again. But the patient had already gotten a massive overdose, and pressing P could fire that same overdose into them a second time. The operator had no way to know. The console was lying to her, calmly in plain numbers. This was not the first time. Across about a year and a half, from 1985 to 1987, there were 6 known accidents like this. Patients burned from the inside. At least 3 of them died from the radiation overdoses. Others were maimed. And as the reports came in, the company kept giving the same answer. It was impossible. When a hospital reported a patient injury, the company said its machine could not have done it. They tried to reproduce the fault and could not, so they decided the fault was not real. In one letter to a worried hospital, the company put it in writing. They wrote that the injury could not have been produced by any malfunction of the therac 25, or by any operator error. Not the machine, not the operator. In their telling, nothing had gone wrong at all. It got worse. At the time, hospitals were not even required to report these kinds of accidents to anyone. So each hospital was often facing the problem alone, told by the maker that no one else had ever seen anything like it. People were being hurt, and the official position was that it was not happening. Stop here. Look at what this actually was. An experienced operator, doing her job correctly, fixes a single typed letter. She moves the cursor up, changes one character, moves back down in about 8 seconds. That speed, and only that speed, is what slipped the change past the safety check. The machine fired the beam that was 100 times too strong, with no metal target in the way. And the screen stayed calm. It read beam ready. It read a normal dose. Sit with that ratio for a second. A routine typo correction, fixed a little too quickly. On one side. On the other side, a lethal beam. The prescription was around 200 units of radiation. The patient got tens of thousands, on the order of 100 times the intended dose, from a healing machine, because someone typed too fast. Now hold on to one fact above all of it. The operator did nothing wrong. She was skilled. She followed the procedure. Fixing a typo fast is not a mistake. It is what good operators do. The fault was in the design. A machine that punishes someone for being quick is a machine that was built wrong. and the typing was only one way this machine could turn on you. There was a second bug, a completely separate one, with a completely different trigger. This one showed up at a hospital in Yakima, Washington, in January of 1987. Inside the software was a small counter, a number that the machine ticked up by one every time a certain safety routine ran. The problem was how small that counter was. It could only hold a value up to 255. On the next tick, instead of going higher, it rolled back to 0, like a clock going from the last hour back to the start. And on that one pass, when the counter hit 0, a safety check got skipped. So every 256th time, for one moment, a guard was simply not there. If an operator pressed the button in that exact instant, the machine fired the full, strong beam, with no target in place. Same horrific result as the typing bug, a massive overdose, but a totally different cause. One bug was about typing too fast. This one was about pressing a button at the wrong fraction of a second. Pure bad luck on a hidden timer. Two different doors into the same disaster. And both of them were only deadly because the hardware locks were gone. Here is the detail that proves the whole point. The machine that came before it, the older model, had the very same software bug inside it. The same flawed code, the same race against the clock. It was sitting in that older machine for years. And it never hurt a single person. Because that older machine still had its hardware locks. When the software made the mistake, the physical backstop caught it, every time. Same bug. One machine, harmless. The other, lethal. The only difference was the safety layer somebody decided to remove. That is the one wrong move. Not the typo, not the operator. The quiet decision to trust software alone and pull out the physical locks. It took outside investigators to finally break through the denial. At the Texas hospital, a physicist worked with the operator to recreate the accident. He had to practice typing on the console until he was fast enough to trigger the fault himself. Once he could match her speed, the overdose appeared on demand. The bug was real, and it was about how fast you typed. In May of 1986, the United States Food and Drug Administration declared the therac 25 defective. It became the most serious class of recall, the kind reserved for products that can kill people. The company was ordered to fix it, and the regulators sent the first plans back as not good enough, again and again. The fixes that were finally accepted in the summer of 1987 did one obvious thing above all. They put the hardware safety locks back in. The physical backstop the design had thrown away returned. They also limited how you could edit a treatment and replace those cryptic codes with messages that actually told the operator what was wrong. If this is landing, take 1 second and subscribe. A healing machine that fired a lethal dose over one fast keystroke is not a story that should fade from your memory. Today, the therac 25 is taught in classrooms all over the world. Not in medical schools, in software and engineering classes. It is the textbook example of what happens when you trust software to keep people alive and give it nothing to fall back on. The lessons are blunt. Do not let software be the only thing standing between a machine and a human body. Old code that worked before is not proven safe. It might have been getting saved by something you just took away. And when a person tells you your machine hurt someone, the answer is never that it is impossible. Every accident here was a chance to catch it. Every denial let the next one happen. Step back from the whole chain. It started with a company deciding the software was good enough and taking out the physical locks the older machines had. It ran through old, reused code with a hidden bug that the locks used to catch. Through a screen so cryptic the operator could not tell a pause from a catastrophe. Through a company that answered injury reports with the word impossible. And it ended with a skilled operator, fixing a single letter in about 8 seconds, firing a dose 100 times too strong into a patient who came to be healed. 6 accidents, at least 3 dead. Over a year and a half. That is the one wrong move. A safety layer taken out, to trust a machine that was lying the whole time. And the line that stays with you. The same bug lived for years in the older machine and never hurt anyone, until someone decided the software could be trusted on its own. A safety layer removed. A screen that lied. A single letter fixed too fast. If this one got you, hit subscribe. One wrong move drops a new one twice a week, and the next one is worse.